it's starting over. Oh, geez.
It says we're streaming live.
We're on?
That's what it says.
Mm-hmm. So I don't see us, but I'm going to believe you. Good afternoon. We're here from 25 Women for 2020 to introduce you to some of our wonderful, strong Democratic women candidates running for Indiana House in 2020. Our first candidate is Alyssa Bailey. She's a born and raised Hoosier. She comes from, tell me what town again, Alyssa, sorry.
Butler, Indiana, originally. Currently live in Bloomfield, Indiana.
In Bloomfield. Alyssa is a veteran and is also a teacher and in the public schools in Indiana. Our other candidate today is Paula Staley, also a born and raised Hoosier, who is retired from a long career in nursing, but also in public health, working at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, as well as the local county health department. So we're going to start right off with questions for our candidates. So I'm going to give it over here to Shannon K. Kling. She's our Director of Strategy at 25 Women for 2020.
Hi, Alyssa and Paula. Thank you for taking time out of your Sunday to come chat with us. The first question is, given that the Surgeon General just announced that Indianapolis will be one of the new up and coming hotspots for COVID-19, what do you see happening in your districts? What are their concerns? What is their experience? And if you are a legislator, when you are a legislator, how will you address something like this in the future? Paula, go ahead and take that one, please.
So first of all, I think first of all, there should be no secrets. The state should have a plan. Our leaders should be able to articulate what that plan is for people to feel comfortable about what's going to happen. I have heard that the state didn't want to release information. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That the state didn't want to release information because they thought that it would panic people, but I think people are more comforted with the information and when they can anticipate what's going to happen. In my district, it's rural health district. We have our rural hospitals operate on a very thin margin and often in the red. We have no idea how this crisis is going to be funded. If they're going to be able to expand their beds, if they're going to be able to expand their ICUs, if they're going to have enough personal protective equipment. And keep in mind that at the same time this COVID-19 crisis is going on, we also still have opioid crisis in South Central Indiana. Also, our farmers are suffering with bankruptcy, with the plunging commodity prices and increased debt, farm equipment debt. They need mental health services in South Central Indiana. So I think it's, if I were in the state legislature, I would ensure that, first of all, that we had universal health care. I'd fight very, very hard for universal health care that would support also rural health areas and make sure that they have access, that people have access to the services that they need without driving miles and miles and often outside of their own county to access those services.
Thanks, Paula. Alyssa, let us know how it's going in your district, what's going on in your community, and how you'd like to see it go differently once you're a legislator.
Well, people are scared at this time. They're unsure of how long this is going to last and what the long-term effects are going to be. Our district is feeling the strain financially. Without work, families are wondering how they're going to pay rent and bills. And I know the government is working on unemployment claims and getting financial help to people. But what about small businesses? They're also feeling the strain on this. They're wondering how they're going to stay open once this ends. And yes, they can receive a low interest loan, but that's just going to put them further into debt during this time. That's not really going to help them while these larger corporations are being bailed out. So that's an issue I have. And that's something that I want to help support those small businesses as well in our areas. And transparency, as Paula stated, would help people understand and anticipate what is coming.
So do you have some similar issues to where, yes, we're all concerned about COVID-19, but we're also concerned about things that we were concerned about before this all happened, and then it's just piling on?
Yes, for sure.
Mhm.
Deb, you want to go to the next question?
Yeah, let me ask a question about education. 95% of counties in Indiana report shortages of teachers. And I would love for both of you to comment on that and what you think the state should do to address that shortage. Alyssa, you want to go first?
Sure. So there is a teacher shortage in Indiana, and I think that's due to the way teachers are treated. What other careers are people expected to pay for their own supplies? They have these large class sizes, emphasis on standardized teaching with data that's unusable for that year, not including what the students are dealing with at home. I help many friends in my classroom with unpacking baggage that they carry to school without helping them get to play. I need to help them get to a place in which they are ready to learn before I can actually begin to teach them academics. So the state can address these things by doing more than hold harmless on test scores. They should be ensuring our schools are appropriately funded, holding private and charter schools accountable, decreasing class sizes while increasing additional services to our students and staff. These children are our future and they deserve to be invested in.
Great. Paula?
So I think with the teacher shortage, as Alyssa stated, we need to back up to the cause of the shortage. Teacher salaries are so low in Indiana that we can't recruit teachers, and teachers leave for better paying jobs. And that also we're losing population in the rural areas in my district because of a lack of jobs. In District 65, they have had to consolidate schools due to also the state school funding formula has not kept up with the cost with inflation. So there were some schools that could have kept open if they just had kept that funding formula had kept up with inflation. So if it were up to me in the legislature, I would, beyond standardized tests, I think that the children should have one standardized test when they graduate from high school, and all of the standardized tests should be eliminated. I also think that they should provide for all of the school lunch programs without cost. And I think if we did both of those things, we might be able to attract some teachers into, in addition to jobs, of course, you know, that we might be able to better our schools and eliminate the focus and the teaching to the tests.
Thank you, Paula.
Mm-hmm.
Third question, I'll stay with you, Paula, and then we'll go to Alyssa. There were a few healthcare bills that did not get passed this session, like meeting the needs of people with diabetes, EpiPens for kids, and work accommodations for pregnant women. Which of these bills really resonates with your constituents, and how would you fight for these needs in the future when you're a legislator?
So that's a really, really good question. I think all of those healthcare bills point to the need for universal healthcare as a human right. That's something that we can do in Indiana. This COVID-19 crisis particularly has shined a very bright light on the inequities and inadequacies of our healthcare and our social safety net. So I think that everyone has a right to healthcare. And I think that all of those bills that you mentioned show what inequity there is. When the COVID-19 crisis started, there was a lot of discussion around, well, are the tests going to be paid for? Well, the insurance companies said, well, we can provide them without a copay, but they didn't say anything about, you know, what if you have a deductible? What if you have a co-insurance? And most importantly, what if you don't have any health insurance? And what about the treatment? If we had healthcare, universal healthcare in Indiana, which is possible to do on a statewide basis, all of those problems are eliminated. Then it's up to the state to negotiate for the insulin and the EpiPens. Now, as far as the pregnancy accommodations bill, once the legislature the supermajority of the Republican legislature is reduced, then there will be more negotiations with Democrats to support family issues like the pregnancy accommodations bill. And for them to put that into a study, for them to vote down just having to be from such a right to life state and such a solid red state, and for them to vote down any kind of assistance for a pregnant woman to be able to work, which most often she has to, it's just unconscionable, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Thank you, Paula. Alyssa, which of these healthcare bills that did not get passed really are near and dear to your heart, and how will you handle that as a future legislator?
As Paula stated, all of these bills are so important and resonate with my constituents. Any bill that allows not just access, but affordability to quality healthcare need to be supported. To include the bills that you mentioned that were not passed, I support ensuring citizens have access and are able to afford quality healthcare, including mental health services and providers, as well as continuing to support price transparency, holding insurance companies accountable to their patients and providers, lowering prescription costs. All of these things need addressed.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Oh, so those are really solid questions, but I really want to be able to open this up and talk about other issues that you are both seeing in your districts and what you think that you should do and will do as a state legislator after the 2020 election. Alyssa, you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm actually running on a READ platform, which stands for Revitalizing Our District by focusing on education, health, affordable and accessible healthcare, and developing our economy. And I know we've touched on many of these areas throughout this call, at least on the education and then healthcare. But one area I wanted to touch on, that the importance of working towards bringing industries to our rural areas while investing in economic growth, workforce, and career development.
Did you say Paula? Okay, sure. So I agree with Alyssa, jobs, but jobs that pay a living wage for people that pay a living wage for people when people work just one job. That allows them time to when they just work one job, that allows them time to nurture their own families and children and their families, and allows them time for their own recreation. I know right now when everybody's hunkered down in their house, there's not a lot of outdoor close activities, but I think that's really important. And so in my district, we do have a great need for more and better jobs with also good benefits and paid sick time. That also brings up the issue of the union support and the right to work that needs to be repealed in Indiana. In the COVID-19 response, if we didn't have some union support, some of these issues would be worse than they are now. So that union support is very important. In my district, we are home to the Hoosier National Forest and Lake Monroe. And in Brown County, of course, we have Brown County State Park, which is the largest state park in the state. So environmental protection issues are very important in my district. The state should, I think, reduce, and I would support legislation that does this, should reduce the clear cutting in Hoosier National Forest that is eliminating our native hardwoods and reducing habitat and endangering wildlife. In the Salt Creek, in Lake Monroe is made up of the Salt Creek aquifer that provides drinking water to much of the district and provides recreation on Lake Monroe. Urban and agricultural runoff and septic leachant is what's causing the blue-green algae blooms. So there is now a group that has access to 319 grant, it's called, that's going to be doing a lot of the water testing in the aquifer. And so I would support legislation that provides for a cleanup in that area and issues with the urban and the agricultural runoff, and of course, the issues with the septic in that area. So that's a couple of things other things that are important, ongoing importance during this COVID-19 crisis.
Thank you so
Alyssa,
much,
would you
Paula.
like-
Oh, go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, would you like to speak to that as well? Just, recently the federal government announced that EPA wouldn't be really enforcing any of our environmental regulations through this crisis, whatever timeline that happened.
I can. And my opinion on that is, while the country is distracted with this COVID-19 response, that there are different agencies that are doing this kind of work, unbeknownst to the majority of the population. I think when during the next election, which is going to be, this next election is, I think, the most important election in US history, that we need to change of leadership, and it's going to take some time, but I think we can work at getting things back environmentally and as it was before, and even further as far as Clean Air and Clean Water Act and that sort of thing. So they've been doing that for a while, but I think ever since this administration has come in, because they're very business and corporate friendly, trying to reduce all of those. But I think even during this crisis, they're doing a lot more dirty work. I think that'll take some time to clean up. It's not impossible, but it's going to be a real uphill battle to change all these things, and we just have to, with climate change and other issues also that we have to worry about.
So I have a lot more questions, but Shannon, I want to give you an opportunity. I know you've got questions too.
Another question from me?
Yes.
We've talked about a lot of serious issues. Back to Paula, I'd like to wrap up with a positive question. What's going well in your district? What's a positive that you can build on?
I'll tell you what I see in my district right now with this COVID-19 response. I think that it's just changed everything. It's changed the way that we live. We're all, like I said, hunkered down in our homes. Some are healthy, some are in quarantine. I think that kids are home from school. We're being told to social distance. We're protecting our other family members. So what I see is people coming forward and in mutual aid, and people, especially in my district, it's been a very red district, and people have been very divided, if you will. There's been a real coming together of the community, and I think that even though this crisis has exposed this woefully inadequate social safety net, that it gives me a lot of hope to see the people coming together to help each other. Nobody's talking about politics. Unfortunately, we do have campaigning and an election coming up, but people are looking at people based on their need and their ability to help. And actually, my prayer going forward is that after this crisis is over, after all of the after action reports are written, that this will continue in the future. So that's what I see in my district.
Well said, Paula. And to you, Alyssa, what positive things do you see going on in your community and your district?
A community as well. Like, we have just a great sense of community here in my district. And as Paula stated, it's people helping people. We are able to put politics and all other issues aside in this moment to come together and just help people out. There are needs out there and resources that are becoming available in my community. It's just astounding. The list is immense, and I'm actually trying to work on building that community list for members, just a one-stop shop where they can see all that is truly available out there to address all of their needs at this time.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Deb, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, Alyssa, I always want to give you a chance to talk about climate change and environmental issues in your area. And I wonder what kind of connection. And I know this is, maybe this is just kind of a multiple choice. So there's that question, but I also want to give you a chance to talk about what you're doing with veterans. I know you're a veteran, and I want you to talk about your experience as a veteran and what you think our state could be doing better to help veterans.
So on the veteran aspect, so I served 6 years in the Army National Guard, and I'm currently in the Air Force Reserves, and I love it. I'm hoping to make a career out of it and retire from the military. It's definitely very near and dear to my heart. I come from a family of veterans. My dad served, my grandpa, my aunt, my uncle, my brother. There's just a long line of us. So it's really just a sense of duty and just so important to us. And veterans health benefits, mental health services. If you notice when I talk about my platform, I always talk about mental health services. It is so important, not just for veterans, for everybody. But we really see it in the military community. We see the suicide rates. We see veterans coming home with PTSD and not having the services necessary to prepare and help them along through their daily lives. So those are things that I really hope to get in and change and stop the stigma of mental health and really come to the core and just help people.
Right.
All right. So Shannon, you can wrap up and we'll talk about what's coming up. We'll be doing these candidate conversations going forward. Another one coming tomorrow.
Can I have just 1 minute?
Sure,
Also,
go for it, Paula.
So I wanted just to end by saying that to anyone listening to this, that we are also in this COVID-19 crisis experiencing feelings of loss of our freedom, our way of life. And it's very similar to a grieving process that we go through when we lose a loved one. Those feelings of disbelief, anger, sadness, acceptance. I currently go back and forth between yelling at my TV and anger, and then every once in a while having, feelings of sadness when I hear that people are dying in the hospital without anybody with them, and with the hospital staff being so overwhelmed with other patients that they can't be with them. It's a very sad time. But I think the best way to deal with that is to acknowledge those feelings, let them pass through you. I do that. I try to keep my chin up. I think it's important to remember. I try to remember that it's springtime, flowers are blooming, and to get outside and walk and to literally smell the roses. Roses aren't out yet. Smell the flowers.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you. And we are so honored at 25 Women for 2020 to have you on our team. We'll be having 22 more, hopefully, of our candidates on, so you can get to know more about these candidates. Go to their websites, their social media. Please consider an investment in their campaign. We at 25 Women for 2020 have a statewide strategy to get these women elected and then beyond. And we hope that you'll go to our website and our social media and inbox us and ask us, how can we help? We'll let you know. We got ways to do that. So until the next time, when you join us at 25 Women for 2020, thank you for all that have joined us. We could not be doing this without our whole team. That is our support system that is statewide in every district from Lake Michigan down to the Ohio River border. Thanks, everyone. Stay healthy, stay safe.
And then tune in tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time to get to know Julie Morgan Snyder, who is running for House District 33 on the east side of the state, and Brandy Cooper Vandeveer, who is running for House District 42 on the west side of Indiana. So, and we hope you'll get to know these candidates more just by going to their Facebook pages and their websites. I cannot tell you how proud I am of these amazing women who are stepping up to really bring smart, compassion intelligence and real courage to the legislature. Thanks so much for joining us. Everyone want to say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Bye, thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.